Before we get started, turn your attention to the screens.
Music is powerful, and it all has to start somewhere. And that somewhere is here. It all starts with educators, role models, and leaders.
Hi, guys! Never thought that it was going to be like Carrie Underwood caring about us.
These classrooms hold young minds desperate for a chance to explore, to express, to give sound to their voice. That's why the CMA Foundation is committed to music education.
Well, I'm very excited that we get to help you guys today.
Championing the leaders and thinkers of the future. Because this is about more than just music.
You are special, very special.
It's helping the children of today grow into the leaders of tomorrow.
It's on such a deeper level for these kids to be creative and self-expressive.
And it all starts here, in this classroom, in your classroom. A student's contagious desire for creativity is unlocked, and if we listen, we can hear them grow. Because if we give our students music, they can change the world.
Give a big round of applause to CMA Foundation. We wanted to make sure you knew about the life-changing work that is happening at the CMA Foundation. My name is Franklin Willis, and I serve as the Director of Visual and Performing Arts for Metro Nashville Public Schools, and I've been a long-time advocate of the CMA Foundation. But we often see the glitz and glamour of country music's biggest night. But behind the scenes, there's a vast network of creatives and technical minds coming together to make it all happen. From stage design to lighting, sound engineering, production, logistics, and beyond, every aspect of the show is powered by STEAM. Can we say STEAM? STEAM. Science, technology, engineering, arts, and mathematics. Today, we have an incredible lineup of experts who will bring these elements to life. Before we dive into the discussion, I'd love for each of you to introduce yourselves and share how you got started in the industry. What drew you to this work, and what's one behind-the-scenes moment that you'll never forget?
Am I going first? You're going first.
I'm going first. So I'm pretty, I think, rare in that from the 4th grade, I knew exactly what I wanted to do.
Introduce yourself.
Oh, I'm Robert Deaton, and I'm the executive producer of the CMA Awards and the CMA, all the CMA television properties. So my father had a local television show in Wilmington, North Carolina, and I was always hanging out at the TV station and part of his shows. He had a Friday night country music show where all the legends from the Grand Ole Opry and the big artists of the day would come and do the show. And so I was always around artists like that and always at the TV station. And so high school graduation, and I knew where I was going. I mean, I knew what I wanted to do since the 4th grade. So just being entertainment, being in the visual, and also in the recorded aspect of entertainment, and so that's what I did. And now I've done, I think, almost 60, I think it's over 60 television event specials, and then created Are You Ready for Some Football for ABC. I did that for 5-6 years with Hank Jr. And currently my latest show is we also have do a New Year's Eve Live Nashville's Big Bash for CBS. So that's kind of the arc.
Who wants
I'll go next. I'm Danny Rader, and I'm the musical director for the CMA Awards, the CMA Christmas show. And I, kind of like Robert, have been in the music industry really my whole life. My family had an Opry show, a theater in North Florida, in Panama City, called the Ocean Opry Show. And they started that before I was even born. So my entire childhood, we did about 200 shows a year with my family, grandma, grandpa, aunts, uncles, cousins, mom and dad, we all played and sang something or multiple instruments. And so I didn't really know there was any other option other than making music for a living, really. But got very hooked at a very early age on just the art of making records, the connection that you feel when you're playing shows and people are listening and applauding and just being able to touch people's lives. And I remember my granddad used to always say something to whatever crowd was there, basically to the effect of, you know, if we can help you during these 2 hours forget whatever it was that was bringing you down before you came in, then we've done our jobs. You know, and that's always stuck with me, whether it's playing for a football stadium. You know, I also tour with Kenny Chesney on the road, so whether it's playing a football stadium for 60,000 people or a writer's night for 24 people, that's the same mindset. Is if we can just put everything else aside for the time that we're here together and enjoy the connection and the spirit that we have with music, then we've done our jobs.
Wow. All right, Jessica.
My name is Jessica Basile. I am the post-production supervisor for the CMA Awards, Country Christmas, the New Year's Eve show, and I'm actually a fan. That's how I started. I was a fan of country music, and I graduated from college, and I wanted to move to Nashville, and I wanted to be in the music business, and I didn't know how, and I didn't know where or when, and so I came into it as a fan, and I can't play music, and I can't write a song. I haven't tried. But I wanted to be in there without being a creative and without knowing it from childhood. And I just found my way into CMA and being a part of this super creative team.
Thank you. Thank you all for sharing. So now let's go to the CMA Awards, and let's talk about the precision and the creativity that it takes to host and put on this show. But take us behind the scenes and talk to us specifically about STEAM. How have we used STEAM to overcome any challenges? Science, technology, engineering, arts, and math. What have we done, or what have you been doing in this work to overcome challenges that come up? And you can give us some scoop, some tea.
So rephrase the question again. What's the question again?
So how are we overcoming challenges when we are at the CMA Awards? We're about to go on, and something happens that did not go as planned.
Yeah.
How are we using STEAM to make sure those things are corrected?
Well, we hope that doesn't happen. And with that is a lot of pre-production. You know, there's a great deal of time that goes into the pre-production from, you literally start when the nominations come out. You know, I mean, that's when you start. When you start to figure out, okay, what's the show going to be? Is there a through line? Is there an arc? Is there something interesting that people wouldn't expect? But really, you just start with. I always start. It's very simple for me. Is that, I start thinking about the show, and for me, I've said this many times, that the music gives me all the answers. So I start with the music. How am I going to present this piece of music and this artist? So, and we do things a little bit differently. When the nominations come out, and we kind of start figuring out who's going to be on the show and who's not, I take my entire team. We normally go to LA because we want to get out of Nashville. We hold up in a hotel for 3 days, and we literally, it's just as simple as we have a computer out, and we're like, all right, Chris Stapleton, push play. And, our creative team, we get together, we listen to the song, and then we start, I will tell you, if you're going to be in that room, you got to be really good, and you got to have thick skin, because we don't have time. We got to go. You know what I'm saying? We got to go because we got stuff to do. It's 3 days intense. From the time that the nominations come out, it's a race to be on the air. It's a race. People go, are you ready? I know when the air date is. We're never going to be ready. Okay, but I do know when the air date is. And so we get together. We literally, it's like if it's Chris Stapleton, we push play on Chris Stapleton's song. And then we start coming up with ideas. It takes us 2 or 3 hours on that song. And then we get done, the next one, and then we do the next one. And
so it sounds like arts really are at the center, and music is at the center of how the award show is created. So the music is driving the creativity.
The music drives everything. Now, once we get that done, and I'll give you an example of just one example. So everything is timed, every single phrase. So if we do script read with Peyton Manning, Luke, and Lainey Wilson, I have my script supervisor, and he is every time we read the script, he is timing it. So every single phrase, whether it's one line, it is timed out. I know that I want to go into the show 2 to 3 minutes under my allotted time because I know things will spread. Someone will get on stage. They'll talk longer than they should. There's certain people I can't play off. Like, I'm not going to play off George Strait. You know what I'm saying? I want to keep my job for a while. So, but I'll give you an example of this. So I'll give you 2 quick minor examples. So as far as timing and and get out of the creative for a minute. So the reason that, I always have a stage, I put a stage in the back of the room, and we surround it with fans, which is a lot different than the front because that's all industry people. And I do use that stage to get energy in the room, but that's not the main reason. The main reason is I know somewhere in the show, the CMA, we're going to give like a Lifetime Achievement Award. And most of the time, that's using both stages. Well, that's getting set, guitars, amps, all of that on both stages. Well, if I go to another performance, I can't go to that stage. So where am I going to go? I got to go to the back. And so that buys me time. If I 4-minute performance, go to a commercial break, gives me 4 minutes. Then I've got 7 minutes, give an award, that's 3.5 minutes. So I'm looking at 8 to 9 minutes that I can be changing the stage that we just used. So that is the technical aspect of it. And then the other example that I can give you this year, so Ella Langley, an artist named Ella Langley and Riley Green had a big, huge hit record. And it really started gaining traction a couple of weeks before the CMA Awards. Well, we were full, okay? We were full. So, but at the same time, I felt like, man, this is a really great opportunity to give these 2, she's relatively completely new. Riley's been around for a while, but this is really a way to give them a boost to what they're doing as artists. But I couldn't do anything on stage because everything had already been allotted. Every bit of the stage, so I could not do any type of set design. I couldn't do anything like that for them. So when I made the offer with the creative. I said, here's the creative. We're going to find you in the audience. We're going to come out of an award. We're going to do a misdirect. People aren't not what's going on. We'll send the Steadicam up the aisle, and we'll find you sitting in the seats, and you start singing a song because it's a very talkative song anyway. And so that way and then you will go to the satellite stage, and then when Riley starts singing, we'll find him in the audience. So therefore, I didn't have to use the main stage, and it also was clever, creative, I thought. And the creative worked for the song. If the creative didn't work for the song, we wouldn't be doing it, okay? We got to serve these artists. That's what we do. But I felt like the creative served the artist. So that was the reason why that was out there. It was because we literally did not have the space. So it's all a puzzle all night through.
What's so interesting about Robert that I love is he has all these creative ideas that you explain and can tell out loud to me. I don't picture any of it in my brain. And so when you're talking about being in LA, these guys are all coming up with these fantastical ideas, and then you come back to the technical people and go, this is what we want to do, and then we drop in steam. We go, okay, timing, can I get that footage to you in time? Can we get those cameras to do what you're seeing? And so he's relying on being able to shoot for the stars and dream up whatever he can dream up, and then relying on the technical people who can execute that, and then working together the whole time. And what's interesting to hear him speak for me is I have to go along with it. I go, okay, I don't know what he means because I don't see it in my head. But then we show up at rehearsals, and immediately you see it, and I can see what he's envisioned, and we have executed it. And it's that combination of us being able to support, the STEAM supports his creative, and he knows it too. He knows the technical, so he's not gonna, put us back us into a corner either, There's so many discussions about, I really want to do this something creative, but hey, we can only have 4 guitars on stage or whatever that is. And the melding of those two things is always like, it comes together at rehearsals, and it's just my favorite part of watching you work, because everything that's in your brain and how you explain comes to fruition because of we've put it all together.
Well, I think trust, quick thing I want to say, trust is really important with all of us up here, and I'm going to give you an example of the trust that I have on Jess. It was not CMA's, but it was this past year, we had an issue on New Year's Eve, second performance in, and somehow we were doing a performance from a different location, not the main location, but somehow Keith Urban's vocal got in the other performance, and we could not figure out during the performance what was happening. It had actually gotten into combined in a bus with several other things, and we couldn't figure out the problem until after we went to commercial break. But we knew that we could, which Danny will tell you, that killed me. Oh, yeah. That killed me. It was like that. It hurt that performance and that artist. But we knew we could correct it we thought maybe we could get it corrected by the time we air on the West Coast, because that's delayed. I go up to Jess. I'm like, Jess, this is what just happened. I need you in the truck now. She comes to the truck. I said, this is what happened. This vocal got in that mix. We've got to figure out, can we redo? Did anybody record the mix? Did anybody record it multi-track over at the other location? Because if they did, we need to get a mix without that, and we got to get in touch with New York and send them this. And then I'm not sure all the technical stuff, but I know enough. And I'm like, we've got to get that relayed, and we got to get that to New York, to LA, so that the West Coast is right. This is what she says. I don't know how to do it. I'm not sure what the problem is. I don't even really understand completely all the technical stuff that you were saying, but I'm going to get it done for you. This is going to get done. That's why this one here and this one here, it's like, that's when you go as an executive producer, they got my back. She's got my back. And I never worried about it again. And I love that honesty. I really don't know how to fix this, but I will get it done, and I will fix it. Yeah. And she had to figure this out in 20 minutes.
Yeah.
While the show's still going on.
While the show's still going on. Right.
I'll chime in with an interesting one. The first thing that comes to mind was actually more of a engineering sound issue that we fixed with a more creative solution. And the first thing that comes to mind was a few years ago we were doing a performance at Nissan Stadium, highlighting the CMA Foundation, actually. I believe you were there with your kids, right? So they were singing Humble and Kind by Tim McGraw, and Tim is on stage with the band, and the kids were down here, and they're singing along with the song. And I walked out to front of house, and I was listening at the front of house at the stadium, and I'm sitting here going, oh, we can't hear him. The sound of the PA was so loud. And these kids, even though there were a bunch of them, and you can put mics as close as you can to them, there's only so much you can do to make them louder than a PA, because the more you turn it up, you're also turning up the sound of the PA. And so our head of audio department, Tom Davis, and I got our heads together, and we said, okay, what we need to do is we need to do a quick little pre-record with these kids, and then we can put that in the support tracks that Tim's band will be using on stage, so it'll be synced to a click track. And because we could always go in before the televised portion and re-record the kids singing and make it great for the TV broadcast. But we felt like that would be cheating the 50,000 people that were there in the stadium of the experience of being touched by these kids that were singing. So we took all those kids and we went into a little conference room, and Tom and I have a mobile Pro Tools rig, and we went in and we just played the song and had them sing it a couple times through, and then we were able to tuck that in. And so that night when the show happens, you hear these kids singing Humble and Kind with Tim. It was just such a beautiful, touching moment. And Tom and I looked at each other and we were like, yes.
You turn that around quick too, though. Like,
Oh
that's
yeah, it all
like,
happened in about an hour and a half.
Quick.
Yeah.
it was-
The thing
yeah.
that I remember, though, from that performance is during rehearsal, the kid passed out.
That's right.
Yeah.
tell me about
Literally,
your
this
degree.
kid was standing
Little
there,
buddy.
and all of a
His
sudden,
knees
and I
locked.
watched it, and he just went out.
Yeah. It was so
And
hot.
I was like, we were all like, oh my gosh. The teachers were like, he's fine.
He just locked his knees. He's good.
He's fine. Keep going on. I'm like, okay.
Indeed. And that's part of education, right? Yeah. It just is what it is. And so as I hear you all talking, I can't help but to think about just teaching and learning. I hear a lot of what you are saying comes right back into the classroom about being able to pivot and being able to understand that, oh, this lesson is not quite hitting the way that I want it to hit. What can I do? What's my plan B? What's my plan C? And being able to move quickly. Can you talk to us, Jessica, just about that post-production world and how you navigate all of the issues that may have happened live, but you have time to clean it up, not much time, but you have time in your world to clean it up and get a ready-made production.
I will say, as far as science and technology and math, all those things are, for me, they're the baseline. I have to have that. I have to have that locked in, because everything that's going to come up on the fly, the things that we need to do, the things that he might shout out at me, like, quick, go fix this, do this, that's the stuff that I have to be ready for on the fly. So if I don't have the baseline of the basics, the mathematics, my spreadsheets are come correct, then I'm lost when he is, or anything is happening, you know? So that's my baseline of like having everything in order and mathed out, if that's a technical term. Yes. And then post-wise, you know, getting all of these technical things delivered to the truck and getting ready for the creatives to see it and view it and make sure it's what they wanted and what they intended is always, again, based completely in everything that you want to learn with mathematics, with science, with technology. And again, baseline, because that helps me get to the next level and communicate, because that's really what it's about, is like pivoting and communicating with Robert or with Danny is going to be the key to it all. And learning, for me, what I've learned is that these guys will teach me. Anyone in the truck will teach me and are willing to teach me. And so I learned on the fly. Robert can speak to the person who did my job before me, did it very different for me. And I didn't know what a post-production supervisor was. But I came in with a good attitude and was like, I'm going to do this. I'm going to learn this. And people are willing to teach you anything that you're willing to learn. And once that clicked in, I was like, okay, the job and the task is easy. Now I have to keep my head up. I need to look him in the eye. I need to learn how to communicate with him, learn how to communicate how he likes to be communicated with. I'm gonna communicate with my editor different than I'm gonna communicate with an artist. I'm gonna communicate with my family different than I'm gonna communicate with you. And so that opens me up to be a little more creative and be a little more one-on-one with everybody. But again, that's because I have the basics on lock. I can't do that without the basics on lock.
So one thing I would do.
Wait, can we get some snaps for that? Because everything that you just said relates directly to teaching and learning with children.
Yes.
Yep.
Being able to understand the different things that children are bringing into the classroom, it resonates.
Yeah.
And being able to talk to them and speak their language, we need you to say that to a classroom full of teachers.
Okay.
So that they understand that you continue to learn. You continue to learn. It's not, I got the degree, I'm ready to teach, and that's it. No, it's continuous learning.
Also, I'm learning facts, right? I'm learning science and facts. That's base. That's not going to change. What is going to change is how Danny feels on a Tuesday. So do I come hard at Danny? Do I come soft at Danny that day? And so that's, again, the basics are incredibly important because it opens you up to anything that's all the moving targets of life, not just work.
Yeah, one thing, if they're like, for example, she's the post supervisor on the show, and if you're not sure exactly what that is, it's, I'll give you, like, for example, one aspect of her job. So in an awards, what we call an awards pattern, there's 9 awards on the CMA Awards that we give live. Each, I think it's 3.5 to 5 minutes, each pattern. So when she does, and you see that, here are the nominees for Male Vocalist of the Year. We run a package, and you see that. Well, she's done that. She has 27 of those, because what she has to do for me is I need an ideal length, I need a short one, and I need a long one. Okay? And then I am cueing what we're doing in the commercial before. Take the long package. What does that mean? Why would I take the long package? The long package is if I'm short, which very rarely happens, but so most of the time I'm long. So I'll be like, okay, I got to gain 20 seconds. I need to pick up 20 seconds or 15 seconds, and I'll go to the short package. Well, so if we do 9, she's building 27 of those, okay? Not just 9. Then also, if let's say, and I will, listen, I'm pretty good about this. You can tell me if I'm wrong, but if I go, you know what, I think I'm going to, you know what, that didn't work too good I think I'm going to switch these songs, which I don't really try to do once we're at the arena. And then I will literally go, am I killing you? Like, am I going to kill you? Because if I change the performances, it depends on what act it is. If it's act 10, I'm not killing her. If it's act 2, that means she has to change every single bumper for the next 3 or 4. So it's not just that one change. It's the bumper for that one and the next one and the next.
And that's why I trust you, because there are times where he has come to me and said, I want to change this. What does that do? And I have to have the confidence to know the math behind that and go, hey, Robert, we can move mountains. However, this, and this. And he trusts me and I trust him. And he goes, I'm not putting that on you. We can't do that. That's too dangerous, and so it's a trust, again, that we have to work through. We work through every day with our trust and our relationship. We don't work through, do you want to shave 15 seconds off that package? Done. That's not what that's a foundation. That's baseline. The relationship is he trusts me, and when I give him an answer, he knows I mean it, and I know he means it when he speaks it to me. So back to it's back to the math is the math.
The math is math.
The math is math.
Danny, I'm gonna come to you, man. Talk to us about how you create these amazing musical arrangements to songs that people have played, their #1 hits, but you want to add something special to that song. So talk to us your process on how you do that.
Yeah, so once again, a lot of that starts with Robert and I having a meeting and talking down the performances, and then once we get into discussing stage plot and certain examples, there's some songs that just feel like they need to be elevated a little bit. For example, it might be a song that has an orchestra on the recording, but obviously that artist is not taking an orchestra every night because that would be really expensive. However, for the awards, it allows us to be able to pick these moments throughout the night and go, all right, we can really make a meal out of this. And so whether that's just a matter of turning it up a little bit and how we mix it, that's sometimes the case, but also a lot of times I'll go in with a string arranger and we'll write a new string arrangement for the song that just elevates and gives it a little more of a presence and speaking within the performance and the track. And then in many cases we'll say, hey, let's put some string players on stage and put them out there and work that into the overall look. And it does allow us to tell a story throughout the night and take these moments that you may not have noticed these background singers on the recording. They were just there kind of supporting, but all of a sudden when you see it at the award show and you see, a 14-person choir up there, it's like, oh wow, that's cool, and it allows us to make these moments and go, this is going to be special,
You change it, we change the track, you change the track, or the arrangement for a Shabuzi song this past year.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so you can talk about that a little.
Yeah, that was a good one. He had 2 songs that he wanted to do, and we roughly discussed how they might fit together. And so we kind of I just went in the lab and started working on how we would transition from one to the other. And okay, well,
Make
there's
it more country
steel on this one, but there wasn't steel on this one. So let's feature the steel guitar more on this one, because he wanted to make it a little more country and lean in to the organic, rootsy country nature of those songs that he didn't fully commit to on the record, but he goes, I want it to be really country. So he added fiddle on everything and steel and made more of a meal out of it, so to speak.
Shabuzi. Shout out to
Shabuzi.
Robert, coming back to you and thinking with my teacher hat, but you have your executive producer hat, how do you gauge if the audience is buying into the stories that you're telling or the jokes that are in the lines?
The audience?
The audience, like both at home and then the audience, because you're having to do 2 shows. Yeah. One for, go ahead.
Yeah, that's true. You know what? People forget about that. That's true. Especially because I've always felt like it's got to work for the room first, because if it works for the room, that'll come off on television. And then the festival is absolutely we need to be doing things just specifically. It's going to be on TV, but I do it, for the 50,000 people that are in. It's just gut at this point. It's just like, does it feel right? Especially when we're writing like the opening monologue, and whether the jokes are landing. And what we will do is, like Peyton, for example, he treats everything like he's preparing for a football game, which obviously. And so what we would start doing, we started doing the opening monologue to the production staff to see where the jokes are 5 minutes. It will always spread. That's when we know it really worked, if it spreads. Like, it'll spread 2 minutes. Because of the laughter, and that's kind of when you know when it's working. And then some things that, we don't know really, like, for example, when we rehearse, I don't know if people remember this, but there was a very famous performance that we did a couple of years ago with Justin Timberlake and Chris Stapleton, and it was good. It was good. Yeah, it was great. It was like, and Justin came up to me after the rehearsal was over, and he's like, "Don't worry about it. We'll bring it tonight." And I'm like, "It's fine." And then they performed it that night, and it was like, still to this day, everybody talks about that performance as being their favorite award performance of any award show of all time. So that we didn't know. But for me, you just hope that it works. And there's a lot of stuff that you can't do now that we used to do 20 years ago. Politics is out, which is fine by me. But there's just certain things that you adjust with the times. But when I really know how it works, it's weird, and it's still to this day. Whether it's a record, and Danny and I have worked on album projects together, and for me, it's when I see it on TV. When I watch it back, that's when I really know that. I need to see it. Because the whole time when I'm at the producer's table during the show, all I'm trying to do is land dock the boat, and be on time. It's like I'm allowed to go over, but my mentor taught me, if you're going to be a pro, end on time. That's the number one thing. If you're going to be a professional, you end on time. So I really strive not to go over, although this year I did go over on purpose. It was a situation where we had already booked the show. We were already at a time. And then our friend, who we adore and love, Chris Christopherson, died. And so we had to do something for Chris. Wanted to. Not just have to, but wanted to. And then I got a call from my buddy and dear friend, Eric Church, who said, "Robert, I really would love to do this song that I wrote for North Carolina. All the proceeds went to the people who lost their homes in the floods and everything." And so we were already over. I was already at a time. And so I called ABC and I asked to go over, which they said I could go over as long as I was off air by the first commercial break, which meant first commercial break of local news. that, you know, they want to get that revenue. So I had 6 minutes to play with, but for the most part, you know, but as far as whether it works or not, you know, the audience will always decide that. It's like I've always said, I don't really decide, and Danny doesn't decide, and the producers don't decide, and they don't decide what country music is. We do not decide what country music is. Ultimately, the artist will decide. I mean, the audience will decide. You know, a great example of that is Shabuzi this year. You know, it was like, you know, that, and he's such a great person, and I love him and his heart. But that, you know, that was a different kind of sound. It wasn't your normal mix or anything like that. It was all completely different. But the audience decided that that was country music, and that's ultimately who decides. So for me, I have to get back in a fan-type atmosphere, being at home, watching it in real time, watching it with commercial breaks. Like if I hear a record that we did together, you know, when I heard our Rolling Stone project on XM radio, and that's when I was like, wow, that's pretty good.
It works.
It works. That works. But yeah, so, and I've been doing it a long time, and I didn't move to LA on purpose. I mean, and not that being in LA is fine, okay? I'm not saying, but I felt like a long time ago, because I did do a lot of work in Los Angeles, but I felt like I needed to just keep my center of who I was. And I grew up Southern, and I grew up in North Carolina, and I felt like I need to know the audience, my audience, and Middle America, and that's why I stayed where I was, so to be connected to that, because you can so quickly get unconnected from it. So that's how I decided.
Okay, this is for everybody. This wasn't in the script, but what is your most memorable CMA Awards performance over the years? I'll tell you mine. I don't know the name of the song, but it was Jennifer Hudson came out and did something. You may be able to.
Yeah.
And she tore it down.
Yes.
I mean, we went to church. It was everything. But that's mine. I would love to hear.
Yeah, I remember going over to the rehearsal for that. They were doing an off-site rehearsal at a rehearsal space in Nashville. And as soon as we walked in, it was like, oh, man, this is going to be good.
Well, on that one, so I did not know her. And they were doing Belmont University was doing the premiere for that movie, the Respect movie. And I wasn't going. And then I got a call from the publicist. They're like, hey, Jennifer Hudson would like to meet you. And I'm like, I'm going. I'm going now. And so I went backstage in the green room, and God, I just love her so much. And I just think she's one of the greatest talents. My favorites are her, Natalie Cole, Tammy Wynette, Martina McBride, and Ella Fitzgerald. And so those are and I'm like, oh my gosh, I get to be in a room with her. And then I started thinking, golly, I got to get her on my show somehow, some way. And so then I did a deep dive and realized, that Aretha had done some country tinged records, and I'm like, okay, well that will make sense, and I kind of shoehorned that one in. But yeah, that was pretty amazing. Mine I think probably was knowing that how I grew up, growing up and so connected to all these artists. I have two actually, and for me it was the open for the 50th anniversary. That was. I'll be honest, so we did it. We never got through the whole thing in rehearsal, not one time. It was 10-minute long. It was about 10 minutes. We had Brad Paisley, Carrie Underwood, Alabama, Clint Black, Dwight Yoakam, Charlie Pride, Roy Clark, Randy Travis, Clint Black, Reba McEntire, all in one performance, all over 10 minutes, both stages, and Vince Gill. And we never got through the entire thing. In fact, I was like, oh my God, you have done it to yourself this time. I've often almost bit off more than I can chew, but it was like, she's nodding her head, probably yes. And so,
also, it's the 50th anniversary.
Don't
mess it up.
What now?
It's the 50th anniversary. You should not have messed it up. Don't mess it up.
Don't mess it up. And so I'm like, oh my gosh, this is a train wreck, because it was like we never got through it. A lot of those people had not been on TV in a long time. And so I hear a voice, and I had my head down, and I'm like, oh my God. And Vince Gill, I heard the voice. I just knew the voice. And he goes, it looked better on paper, didn't it? And I'm like, Vince? And he goes, it'll be fine, don't worry. Well, we never got through the whole thing. Never got through it. And so now we're live that night, and it was incredible. In fact, my favorite shot, I think, which I think represents who Nashville is, and I think most people wouldn't even notice this, I don't think. But it was Roy Clark and Ricky Skaggs were far stage right, and they were singing into a microphone and holding hands. And to me, I was like, that's who we are. That's Nashville. That's who we are. And so we got through the whole thing, and I'll be transparent with you. I just cried. Because it was like, for me, it was like, to me, it was from the kid growing up, being 5 years old, to that moment, that's what I was supposed to do. And we collectively crushed it, and I just cried because I was like, this will be the best ever. And then the other thing, my other one is, I was a huge Glenn Campbell fan, and I loved him, and I think him and Jerry Reed are the two greatest guitar players that ever played.
Amen.
Yeah. And so when I got to honor, I can't believe that I get to honor my heroes. And so I got Keith Urban and Brad Paisley and Keith Urban, Brad Paisley, and Vince to honor Glenn, and that was the other one. And in fact, I found out this past year with Keith Urban, and he and I were hanging out in New Year's Eve, and he was like, he goes, oh, I'll see you next year, and he goes, of course, I see you every day. I'm like, how do you see me every day? And he goes, I don't do industry photos or anything like that or awards in my house, but I have the picture of me, you, Vince, and Brad when we did that for Glenn Campbell. And that's on mine and Nick's piano in the living room. So I was like, that's pretty cool. So.
That's cool.
I'll tell you mine. It's going to sound like I'm pandering because we're in Austin, but my first year was 2018 as post supervisor. So I had my head down. I was getting my spreadsheets on lock, and we didn't know each other well. So I didn't come to rehearsals in 2018. 2019 was the first time I felt comfortable, like coming and seeing what was happening, And again, everyone is. Has the vision and telling me all these things, and I'm like, okay, well, I got to see it to believe it because I can't picture anything in my head. And I remember walking into rehearsals 2019, and Casey Musgraves and Willie Nelson are singing Rainbow Connection, and I just in my lifetime, I didn't think I'd see Willie Nelson on stage, and my grandmother loved Willie Nelson, and that's country music to me, and I don't think I saw it in the show, but I remember standing in rehearsals and thinking, oh my gosh, I'm in country music. Oh my gosh, they're singing Rainbow Connection, which is Muppets from 1979, like the year I was born. I mean, just that moment for me was like, oh, I can picture, I can see it all now. I can see what he's thinking. I can see what we're trying to do. And it's bringing Casey Musgraves together with Willie Nelson and doing a song that everybody knows, whether you like country music or not, Gosh, it was just so special for me. And now rehearsals is where I'm at. I'm like, you've seen me. Rehearsals is where I'm at. It's like the first time you see it all come together, and there's so many special moments. That's just one of 1,000 special moments I've seen.
Yeah,
that's special.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing.
Oh, I've got a couple, but I think the first one that comes to mind was a few years ago. This was very shortly after I had taken on the music director role. And we had, one of my favorite things about that role is that usually the stuff that I have to be the most musically, heavily involved with are things that are honoring some of our heroes that just mean the world to me. And we were honoring Alan Jackson a few years ago on the awards. And that segment involved 3 different stages, I think, three different bands essentially kind of. So it started with Carrie Underwood out on the stage, and she sang a verse and a chorus of a song, and she had about a 30-second bit that she was saying to honor Alan, and then it was thrown over to another stage, and it was one of those, timing is so important with everything. And when her dialogue lined right up with when we needed to throw to this stage, and then I had a house band put together over here, and then we threw to Alan's band on the stage left side eventually by the time it was done. And it was just so many moving parts. And the fact that it all came off and sounded so good, looked so good, everybody sang and performed well, and you could just tell everybody was just firing on all cylinders. And it was just one of the first moments where, as music director, after I'd come on the show, it was like, it worked. Yes, we did. You know, and it was just a really, really special one for me.
Thank y'all for sharing. Now I'm going to take you to your education side. Okay. I want you to think about a teacher that impacted you. What's their name? What quick story, because we got to get to our Q&A. But those teachers, I'm just saying this, they're living with you now. And you're able to impact many people through your storytelling, your music, your behind the scenes. So I just want to give flowers to the teachers who impacted y'all.
Mm-hmm.
I can immediately tell you who it is. And you know, that's so funny that you asked me that, because I'm like, I should reach out. I don't even know what she taught me. 9th grade, no, 10th grade, something in there. Some high schools, sociology, a class that doesn't matter. Miss Lemula did not, excuse my language, put up with my bullshit. And I was, you know, if I'm lazy or whatever, I knew I can, back to the thing, I know it, but now it's the social. Miss Lemula would not let me do less than she knew I could do. She would not put up with my BS, and she expected more from me. And that was the thing that sticks with me to this day, is all these other, not all these other teachers, I didn't say that, other teachers let me slide by, and Miss Lemula gave me a hard time. She saw in me what I could do, and she knew I was just being lazy. And the expectation and the level that you're expected to hit, that's you know. Miss Lemula was hard. Not everyone loved her, but man, she brought you to another level. And that's what I look for when I'm on my job, any job, is I'm looking for the person who's bringing me up and expecting the best from me. And so, again, what she taught me aside, it's the relationship of how she treated me and what she expected from me. And that's what stuck with me from my teacher. She expected more from me.
Mm-hmm. I'll jump in. I don't even have to think about it. I had my middle school choir teacher, her name was Amanda Rushi, and when I got to high school, I had Julia House, and both of them were just so instrumental in shaping how I viewed music, and helping me to realize it's more than just putting an instrument in your hands and playing, but realizing all the music theory that goes into it. And kind of like you, they didn't let us settle for less than our best. Yes. And they saw very quickly that it was something that really moved me, and I enjoyed the challenge, and I enjoyed being pushed, and so they gave more and more responsibility as they knew I could handle it, till the point where they were letting me, you know, once I got to high school, play piano and warm up the whole choir, and she was working on something else with somebody, and it just left such an impression on me, and I would not be doing what I'm doing now if it weren't for their support.
Yeah, three people come to mind. You know, Miss Alice Arrington, who's my drama teacher, and did all plays, and kind of be like, I think I want to do lights this time, or I want to be in it, and I'm going to be, you know, whatever she would let me do what I wanted to do, because I just didn't want to always be on stage. I wanted to know the other aspects of things. And then also when I moved to Nashville, a guy named Johnny Rosen, a fan of sound, was teaching at Vanderbilt and teaching audio, and I was in all his classes. When I was a kid, every album that I looked on the back of, every live album, it was recorded by Johnny Rosen, a fan of sound. And so he always took two people, and he told the class this. He's like, I take two people to each one of, when I'm working during this year, I take two students. One student is going to come every time, and that is Robert Deaton, because he's actually going to be in this business. And he said that, and I was like, I mean, that was just such it was such a, oh my gosh, I'm special. You know, I mean, it was like, no, it was just uplifted me. And then, but but does a coach count? Does a coach count as a teacher? Okay, so this literally has stuck with me my whole life. I was baseball, junior high school, middle school. And he was taking me home, and I said something about another player, how good he was, and he was great, and how good he was, and blah, blah, blah. And he said, I would take one of you over 10 of him. I'm like, what? Why? And he goes, because you care more than anybody else. And so that stayed with me still to this day. That is in me. I decided, you know what? I may not be the most talented and I may not be the most creative, but I am going to care more and you're not going to outwork me. And so that was the single most important thing, I think, because my dad wasn't around and I didn't have a father figure. And so he was that for me. And so care more. And that it still lives in my heart and my soul.
Thank you all. Thank you all. Shout out to the teachers. All right, so we're going to get into the Q&A. I'm going to tee these up, and whoever wants them can just jump in. How do you ensure live performances stay engaging when so much of today's music is consumed digitally? Ooh.
Well, I will say that's a very complicated question, honestly, and that I don't know if I'm answering this the correct way, but it is it is very difficult because we're trying to serve a lot of things here now, and we didn't before. I mean, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, you looked up Media Base and you go, that's the hit, and that's not necessarily the case anymore. There's so many hits from different, you could have a traditional radio hit, and then you can have a hit that's consuming, it's a hit, even though it's not on the charts, but the streaming will tell you that it's a hit. The other thing that we're trying to do now is, we all of our shows right now are on, either ABC or CBS, and there is no more appointment viewing for younger demo. So, for example, if you're 25 or under, there's other than sports, what appointment viewing is there? There is none. Netflix did very well on the Tom Brady roast, which was kind of like appointment viewing, but there is no appointment viewing for that demo. So, today it's a big mix. It's a mix on how you program your show because you still got to get a rating, and you still got to, so therefore, a lot of the superstars or the legends of the format or any format, pop music, this is not just our issue, this is everyone's issue. So therefore, when I'm doing billboards, I know Mariah Carey's going to rate, Pink is going to rate, but some of the younger artists don't necessarily rate because their audiences are not turning on network television. Just like most people, some kids have never even, they don't listen to terrestrial radio. They just, Spotify. And so for me, that whole question of digital and all that and how they do, to me, that's a question of how do you pull that off? And it just still has to be a balance. You still, even though if you got a great act or a great artist, and sometimes you just got to do it because you got to do it. It's the right thing to do because it's great. You still got, whether it rates or not, you still got to put greatness on television or on these shows. And so, but it is difficult.
All right. So what emerging trends do you see shaping the future of live music production, and how can young professionals prepare for them?
Ooh.
Me?
You want to go?
I think, stumper. What emerging I'm going to read it out loud. What emerging trends do you see shaping the future of live music production, and how can young professionals prepare for them? For me, I don't set trends, so I'm going to skip that part. I don't I know what I like, and it's not what everybody likes, you know. But I will say, young professionals preparing for anything is everything I've said today, which is like, it's about relationships. It's about getting the foundation, and it's about relationships. And I don't love everything that we put on the awards or at Christmas, and that's okay. It's being able to read the room and smile when you don't love something. You know, it's not always going to be the thing that you love. It's come prepared and come with a good attitude. And to me, that's what makes people professional, is finding a way to interact with every type of person you'll meet. And it's not always your favorite person. It might be the best person on the planet. And so professionally, you have to come correct whether you like it or not. And
here's how you get prepared. Jump in.
Jump in.
Yeah.
Jump in. I mean, when I started, it was like, oh, so you're doing a shoot? You need a cameraman? Oh, you're paying what? Pizza? Okay, great. I'm there.
Yeah.
You just got to show up. You know, there's nothing to prepare for, honestly, in the beginning. It's just, you've got to just show up, you know, do anything, serve coffee, do whatever. I mean, just get in the door. Just get in the door, because that's what I did. When I started, when I first got in the door, I was a freelancer, and all I was doing was video assist back in the day. We started when it was film. Film is this thing where it goes through a camera. Anyway, so I was video assist, but I was able to look back and go, okay, I was able to see all the jobs. And then I was like going, okay, I think this is what I'd like to do. Ultimately, I just want to be in charge.
Yeah.
So so you get to sit back, but, you know, don't worry too much about, don't get it in your head. Just know, be there, show up, stay longer. If someone goes, who can come the next day? You can, raise your hand, volunteer for everything.
But be in service of what you're doing. This is not my show. It's not, the CMA Awards is not mine. It's yours, it's CMA's. It's the foundation's. And so again, you have to come in service of what you're asked to do. And it's not always your show. It's not always your album. It's not always going to be your music. It's not always going to be your creative. And so that's tricky these days I think for a lot of kids. And I mean, I could be wrong, but it seems like, you know, there's a lot of like, I want to do my movie. I want to do my show. And it's like, okay, you will. But you got to watch him do his thing, and you got to watch Danny do his thing first, and they'll teach you and learn and come prepared and jump in, and you will learn, and then your time will come. And that might be tomorrow, and it might be 10 years from now, but every step of the way you got to come correct.
Yeah, I would chime in and take because my brain goes when I read that question a little more to the artist side of things and the musician side of things. And one emerging trend that I would address and say there's a lot of pressure on young artists to use a lot more in the way of backing tracks these days when live shows are being talked about. And if there was anything I could impart to the next generation of musicians, it would be go the other direction. All the artists that are still doing this, that have been doing it for decades and decades and decades, have mastered the art of connecting to the people in the audience in front of them. And I would say chase that. Figure out what it is the people that are in front of you like about you, and embrace that, and figure out what it is you love about them coming to see, you know, and lean into that rather than focusing on making your performance perfect or pitch corrected or all the backing tracks and everything else. Just focus on that moment and capturing that and being present in that, and let everything else work itself out.
That's a great way to end, Danny.
Such a musician. I love that.
We have one more slide that we want to show you. Get your phones out. Please scan this QR code. It will take you to the curriculum that CMA produced with Discovery Education. You go behind the scenes. You get to meet fashion designers. You get to meet the people who are putting the show together. You got, I think Jessica even has a whole clip there. But it's a wonderful lessons and units. It's all free. It's all free. So I know someone had a question about what resources are available. This is a great place to start. So thank you, South by Southwest. Thank you to our CMA Foundation family for inviting us. We're done. All right.
Thank you.